you up for a comparison of two large family SUVs? Here we have it. The Mazda CX-9, which is a 6 or 7 seat SUV, versus the Hyundai Palisade, which is a 7 or 8 seat SUV. We'll be comparing both. I've already tested the CX-9 GT SP and the base version of the Hyundai Palisade, and while this version of the Mazda costs nearly $8,000 more than the Hyundai, we can still give you a really good idea of how these two models compare and what they like to live with. So the CX-9 GT SP, it's third from the top of the range and costs around $68,000, and the Palisade is a base model and costs from 60 grand. Right, are you ready to rumble? First up, how do the two compare size-wise? Being large 7 and 8 seat SUVs, people are usually buying these types of vehicles for the space. Let's have a look at the Palisade first. Hyundai's Palisade is an SUV that can fit 8, count them, 8 passengers. That's a number usually reserved for vans, so the 8 sure sets the Palisade apart. It also feels large when you're sitting in here. There's loads of leg and headroom, and it's such a wide car that you won't have any issues jostling shoulders between passengers. Into the second row now, and there is plenty of space back here too. This is me behind a taller person's driving position. You can see that there's loads of room, and I think other adults and taller teenagers will be able to fit back here perfectly fine. You can actually opt for a 7-seat version of the Palisade. If you know you just won't use 8 seats, there is a 7-seat version that has 2 armchairs in this row here, which are much more comfortable with actual handles on them than the flat bench here. If you do opt for the 8 seats and you do have the flat bench, you can fit 3 child seats in this row. I did it with 2 boosters and a baby capsule. The back row is way more comfortable to climb into than most 7-seat SUVs. The second row slides forward, and then this row also goes down. It's just got a lot more space than you would normally get. Sitting in here is also really quite comfortable. I mean, I am 161 centimeters or 5'3", and I've just got so much room between my knees and the seat in front of me, which is also a lot bigger than a 7-seat SUV. If you were to compare it to a van, there is definitely more space for adults in a regular van than you will find in here. But if you are transporting kids around only, then they'll fit fine. Now let's have a look at the CX-9. It doesn't fit as many people as a Palisade. There are 7 seats in total, and you can get a 6-seat version if you fancy, but it does feel spacious inside. Space up the front is great. It's definitely one of those cars you'd be happy to take away on a long road trip because it is so comfortable in the front seats. There's enough legroom and headroom for taller passengers, even with the sunroof. Second row passengers also get a lot of room. My 2 children aged 7 and 9 were so happy in the back here, and I can fit really easily at 161 centimeters or 5'3". This is a taller person's driving position, and there's loads of space between my knees and the seat in front, so taller adults, teenagers won't have an issue back here even for long journeys. And yes, you can fit 3 kids' car seats across this row. Into the back row, which has customizable space thanks to the sliding middle row. So if you're a tall person, you will need to slide this row forward so you have enough space to sit. Kids will be fine back here, and adults probably won't want to be here for long journeys anyway, but they'll be fine for shorter rides. And you'll be able to fit 3 child seats across in this row. So the Palisade is more spacious because it fits more people, but it really depends on how many people you want to fit in the car on a regular basis that will point you in the right direction. How big is the boot in each SUV? SUVs with 3 rows of seats generally have smaller boot space when all seats are in use, and that opens up if you've got less people inside and folds some of the seats down. Boot space in the CX-9 is super large. With the third row folded down, there is a whopping 810 litres of space, which will fit pretty much anything. You can get suitcases in here, a double pram, it'll fit a long road trip's worth of stuff. With the third row in use, the boot space shrinks to 230 litres, but that will still let you carry around school bags or grocery bags. It's just enough for a weekday. Onto the Palisade. So the Palisade will give you more space with 3 rows in use, while the CX-9 will give you more space with 2 rows in use. The boot is also large. With all 3 rows in use, you will get 311 litres of space, which is actually quite large for an SUV with 3 rows. Normally they're a little bit smaller, so you'll be able to fit groceries, school bags, and even a suitcase on the side. With the third row down, the boot space ramps up to 704 litres of space, which is huge, and will fit anything from suitcases to sporting equipment or a double pram, whatever you need. When it comes to design, there's a big difference between the two. The CX-9 definitely has a more stylish exterior and is more SUV-like than the Palisade, which is quite a bit on the boxy side. Let's go into it in more detail. Palisade, you're up first. To fit 8 people, it needs to be big, and they've done as much as they can to jazz up the large proportions with a giant grille at the front along with vertical headlights. But apart from those things, there's not really much else going on in the way of shape and angles. It's fairly unadorned and not particularly fabulous looking. It relies on sheer bulk to make an impression. Inside is impressive for an 8-seater. Vans can be quite basic, so it's actually really nice to get into an 8-seat SUV and have all the mod cons like a regular SUV. Even in the base model, you get leather seats and a leather steering wheel, which both feel good to touch. There is a well-designed center console area with some silver accents, which is all streamlined and very simple. Taking center stage is the 10.25-inch multimedia screen, which looks very 2021, and it also comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Plus, there are 12 speakers in this car, so turn the sound up, the sound is good. You'll also find 3 USB ports in the front, and there are 4 more throughout the car. The Mazda looks particularly good inside, but remember, this CX-9 does cost $8,000 more than this version of the Palisade. The exterior of the CX-9 hasn't had a major overhaul. It's still that reliably stylish car you're used to seeing on the streets, with an air of sophistication that is well beyond its price category. This model does have a black side mirror, unique wheels, and a black front grille that are special to this model. Inside this GT SP model, and the first thing you notice are the burgundy leather seats, which are super eye-catching and they look great. The only thing I would say is to choose an exterior colour that actually goes with this interior colour. There's also a leather steering wheel, there are high gloss accents around the well-designed dash, and it feels quite premium in here, which is pretty good considering that there are 2 models to go before you get to the top of the range. The multimedia system has been upgraded to a 10.25-inch screen, and that's more in line with the other top competitors in this field, so that's a great thing. It comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you get instant access to your phone's main apps. But don't forget, this one isn't a touchscreen, so it's actually controlled by this knob down here, which works quite well. It used to be a very clunky design system of Mazda's, but they've improved it and it's actually fine while driving. While the Palisade looks good, the styling of the CX-9 certainly gives it an edge over the competition. It's more sophisticated and premium, though keep in mind it does cost more. Let's talk driving. How does the Palisade stack up against the Mazda? This version has a bigger engine, but does that mean it's necessarily better? One of the best things about the Palisade is the way that it drives. I'm in the petrol version, which means it has a 3.8 litre V6 engine. And the remarkable thing is that it doesn't feel heavy on the takeoff. So there's no real noticeable lag like you will find in a lot of other 7-seat SUVs. The other thing is that it doesn't feel too floaty while you're driving. So the steering is good and it has decent precision while turning. This means that even though it's a giant car, parking it is actually not too bad as long as you pick a park that will fit the car. I mean, I even noticed in the shopping centre car park that it actually sticks out a little bit, but it does have a really good reverse parking camera with guidelines to help you out. It does use a bunch of petrol in this petrol version, so there's a claimed 10.7 litres per 100 Ks, and I averaged about 15.8 litres per 100 Ks over the 2 weeks. And the driving is good in the CX-9. This updated version has a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, which is quite responsive and it doesn't feel heavy for such a large car. There is some expected lag on takeoff, but drives really well. It handles really nicely and the steering wheel turns nice and easily. It doesn't feel too much like hard work. It powers up hills well, and you also feel really confident driving on highways, partly because of the size and partly because of the power. You feel comfortable overtaking. Fuel consumption is a claimed 9 litres per 100 Ks, and I did an average of 12.2 litres per 100 Ks this week, doing mostly city driving, not many highways. There is no hybrid or electric version on the horizon for the CX-9, however, which is a bit disappointing considering some of its competitors will have one. It's a very large car and you can feel its size when parking. I had to have a few goes in my local Woolies this week, but once you get a handle on the size, it's got a really clear reverse parking camera to help you out. While the Palisade is good to drive and has a lot of power from the large engine, the CX-9 feels more refined and does handle better than the Palisade, which can feel a bit bouncy around corners. Here's how the two stack up for safety. There is a comprehensive list of advanced safety features, including auto emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, recross traffic alert, and smart cruise control. There are a few buzzers which appear to buzz unnecessarily for no reason. So we had a buzzer going off for about 5 minutes before we realized we needed to do up the middle seat belt of the second row that nobody was sitting in. And the other one was that it just appeared to buzz. Sometimes it gets the speed limit wrong and it will buzz until it's through what it thinks is the speed camera. So this kept happening on the way to my mum's house at a particular spot where it thought the speed limit was 60, but actually it's 80. Teething issues, I think. There are airbags throughout, including side curtain airbags that go all the way to the back row. Plus there are 5 top tether points and 3 ISOFIX points to fix kids' car seats in safely. Safety is comprehensive across the CX-9 range, and you will find front and rear auto emergency braking, recross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, and lane keep assist. There are airbags for front passengers of the CX-9, plus side curtain airbags that extend all the way to the third row, and that puts it ahead of cars like the Hyundai Santa Fe and the Kia Sorento. Both cars have good safety for a family, with the CX-9 holding a 5-star ANCAP rating from 2016, while the Palisade is yet to be ANCAP rated. If you're thinking about how long the warranty is, you'll be pleased to know that both the Mazda and the Hyundai have 5-year unlimited warranties with capped price servicing. On the CX-9, servicing is required every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, which is shorter than the Palisade's every 15,000 kilometres. So, who comes out on top? It's very close, and it goes without saying that if you're after a car that fits 8 people, the Palisade is for you, as the CX-9 fits 7. While the CX-9 scored high points for design, driving, and fuel consumption, the Palisade beat it on space. They seem on par for safety, but the Palisade edges slightly ahead with tech as it has the touch screen. Still, we scored the CX-9 higher because you can't beat feeling good on the road, and it's just more refined overall than the Palisade, which is just that bit boxy to make it feel as premium. Despite this version of the CX-9 being $8,000 more expensive than this version of the Palisade, based on my experience with these and other versions of each model, the CX-9 just feels more special.